Thank you. Okay, we got the timer in. So, wow, what a powerful day this has been, huh? What a powerful video that we just saw related to difference. And really, that's what I want to talk with you about today. I work for an organization called CLASS, as Larkin indicated, and I've been there for 41 years, providing advocacy support for men, women, and children with disabilities. But actually, my role as an advocate really goes all the way back to my starting point on Condeluci Hill in McKees Rocks. And, the Rocks is a really interesting place. And some of you who venture down there when you feel roguish will discover that it's the salt of the earth, right? These are people that are hardworking folks, a lot of ethnic orientation. And my family settled there in 1915, coming over from Italy. And when I was born, we had settled, my dad and my grandpa and my uncles and aunts had settled the hill, affectionately known, creatively known as Condeluci Hill. And growing up on this hill was incredible. It was I was surrounded by love. I was surrounded by unconditional support. And I not only had my natural mom and dad, but I had actually 8 moms and 8 dads because my uncles and aunts and my grandma and grandpa were right there in front of us. And we played on this street, and we hung around, and we had a great time. And my best buddy growing up was my cousin Carrie. And Carrie and I were same age, and we were inseparable as kids. Did everything together. And until I went off to school, and Carrie didn't go to school with me. She stayed home. And I remember asking my mama about that. I said, Mama, about 3 or 4 days into going to school, and I'd come home, there's Carrie sort of hanging out, just playing, having fun. I said to my mom, I said, hey, Mama, well, how come Carrie doesn't go? We do everything else together. How come she doesn't go to school with me? And my mama says, oh, honey, Carrie's different. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, Carrie has a thing called Down syndrome, and that makes her different, and she really can't learn. I said, Mama, you mean to tell me if you have Down syndrome, you don't have to go to school? I was looking for an eye. How do I get Down syndrome, Mama? I don't want to go to school either. But it was really an innocent introduction to a really powerful divide that we sometimes have in our culture. Carrie was seen as different, as odd. And what was even more pronounced to me is as we got older, and Carrie and I began to go off the hill together, not to school, but to football games on Friday nights and to, the kinds of things that we do, street fairs and festivals, I learned another lesson about who's valued and why in the way Carrie was treated by other people. Made fun of, jokes were played on her. She was teased relentlessly. And I just could not understand that. And in fact, I would not accept it. I ended up doing a lot of fighting for my cousins on her. And I learned at an early age that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people like Carrie, lead valued lives in community, to have an opportunity to do what everyone else takes for granted, that they were denied or kept apart because they were perceived as different. And so I talked to my counselors at Stowe High School, and they said, well, Al, if you want to help people like Carrie, you've got to study psychology because Carrie is different. She has difference. And Carrie's abnormal, they told me. Now, I believed that, right? I mean, you listen to your counselors. What did I know? So I go off to college to try to learn how I could help Carrie change. Because my professors in college told me that we had to have programs to help Carrie become more normalized so that she could behave more typically, so she could be accepted and respected in the community. And I believed it, and I did it. And it didn't work. All the programs that I began to develop at CLASS and in my career really weren't actually changing the community. They weren't certainly changing Carrie. Carrie was who she was all the way up into the day she passed away. And So I began to change my perspective. Maybe micro change for Carrie isn't the way to go. Maybe we should do macro change. Maybe you're the problem. You just don't see Carrie's beauty. You just don't see what she has to bring to the equation. Maybe I need to change you. And so I embarked on macro change. I thought, I'm going to change you. And so we did. We tried to get militant. We passed laws. We passed the ADA, the Fair Housing Act, the Civil Rights Act, the kinds of things that we thought would change your behavior so you would value Carrie. But that didn't work either. Try as we might, if we try to pass a law to change you, you still weren't changing. Right? So there had to be something else. And then it dawned on me. I went back to an experience I had in college. Because when I was in college, I wanted to learn as much as I could about disability. And I asked one of my professors if he had some recommendations. And he said, yeah. He said, you can do some volunteer work at a school that I'm on their board of directors. And the school teaches kids with disabilities. It'll be a great experience for you. I said, that's fantastic. And so I signed up to be a volunteer. And I went for my first day in the class, right? And they assigned me to a class of teenagers. The teacher's name, I remember it now, his name was Mr. Johns. And so I walked in, I said, I met Mr. Johns, and I said, I'm ready to go. And Mr. Johns said, here's our kids. And I turned around and looked at them, and there were some kids like Carrie, but there were also some kids with disabilities I had never seen before. And what was most pronounced to me were there were children in this class, teenagers, who were hydrocephalic. Now, hydrocephalus is a condition that causes a child's brain or head to get bigger because the fluids that move around our brain don't flush out appropriately. And because the fluid has nowhere to go, the craniums of these kids get bigger. And so I saw these kids. I had never seen somebody with hydrocephalus before. It took my breath away. The difference was dramatic. And I thought, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can stay here and do this volunteer work. And I was trying to think, what kind of excuse can I come up with so I could get out of this? And so I thought, well, I'll just kind of hang in there. I'll try to tough it out for the day, and then I'll make an excuse and never come back. And so we came to recess in the morning. And Mr. John said, Al, take the kids out, make sure they don't kill each other. And so I said, okay, and I take the kids out. And one of the kids with hydrocephalus came over to me. And he came walking over to me. My heart started beating. I'm thinking, oh my God, what could I say? I had a hard time even looking at him. And he said to me, Mr. Condeluci. And I said, yes. And he said, do you know about girls? I said, do I know about girls? I'm Italian, for God's sake. We invented romance, right? Of course I know about girls. I said, what do you want to know? And so he liked one of the girls in the class, and I said, stick with me, kid. This is going to work out for you. I'm going to coach you through this. So we go back into the classroom, and gets to lunchtime. Another kid comes over, another different kid, hydrocephalic. And he says, Mr. Condeluci. I said, yes. He said, do you know about music? And I said, do I know about... I'm Italian. We invented it, right? The music. Don't tell the Greeks. And so he wanted to learn to play an instrument. And third experience, later in the day, another kid, hydrocephalic, asked me if I knew about baseball. He said, of course I know about baseball. I'm Italian. We invented it right after bocce, right? We came up with baseball. But at the end of the day, Mr. Johns came over to me and he said, we're going to see you tomorrow. I thought this is my chance, right? This is my chance to get out of this volunteer work. And then I thought about the kid that needed to know about girls, and I had to help him. And I thought about the kid that was interested in music, and I had to help him too. And I thought about the kid that was interested in baseball, and I had lots to teach him about the game. So I stayed. And I told Mr. Johns, I'll be back. And as I thought about that experience in my work as an advocate, a light bulb went off. Because what really was the key was that I had begun to develop a relationship with these kids. As short as it was in that time that I was there, I developed a relationship with them. And so I came back and I said, there's some magic here, because in that experience, whose head actually got bigger? My head. I was the guy that began to change, not the kids with the disability. Now that was magic to me as an advocate, because what was the key to that change was relationship building. And so I began to study everything I could about social capital. I began to read about it and research it and write about it and experiment with it. And I learned some unbelievable things that social capital does for us, not just for my cousin Carrie, but for all of us. What we know about social capital, and by the way, the name social capital is very strategic. The word capital means value, right? And our relationships bring value to our lives. It's amazing the value you get from your relationships, because through your relationships, you literally, with reciprocity, get things that you would have to pay for, right? Now, sociologists call that instrumental value. They actually have identified that the amount of money that we save because of our relationships is dramatic. One study that I researched while I was working on a book on social capital was by a researcher in New York. And what he did was he took the roles that his wife played for the family, lovingly and freely, right? She took care of the kids, and she prepared the meals, and she did the laundry, and she did the shopping, and she chauffeured the kids around. I mean, you ladies know this, right? She ended up doing all these things for her family, but she did them lovingly, and because she had a relationship with them. He even identified the sexual favors that she offered. And he took all these roles and he measured how much he would have to pay if, in fact, he had to buy these things. And what it came up to was $250,000 a year. Ladies, use this. Right? I mean, this when he tells you that he's, that he's angry because you bought a $100 pair of shoes, say, hey, wait a minute, time out, Jack. I saved you $250,000 a year. Right? But the value is powerful. We're healthier because of our relationships. We're happier because of our relationships. We live longer. Literally, studies have shown that longevity is enhanced. But there's more. We become better people. We become more tolerant. We become more respectful to the people we know. I mean, consider this scenario. You're driving to McDonald's, and you go through the drive-thru. And the kid gives you the order, and you give him the money, and he gives you $10 more than he should have in your change. You don't know this kid. You look at it, you say, 10 extra bucks? What the hell? I eat this shit all the time. This could be for my stints, so I'll save this, right? So you don't use the money, you don't give the money back to the kid, you might just drive away. That's honesty. And dishonesty is driven by disconnections between people. But if that kid was your nephew or your son, and he gave you too much money, you would say, oh, honey, you gave me too much. The register won't balance. You better take it back. So social capital is this huge kind of notion that makes us better as a society. When people know my cousin Carrie, they treat her better. Now, we know sociologically that literally the typical person, and this is an atypical group here today, but the typical person has about 150 important relationships in their lives. 150. It's actually been studied through social network analysis. When we did a study of people with disabilities and how many relationships they have, we discovered that the number was tragically low, about 25. I mean, this is a huge gap. And so no wonder people will tease or make fun of somebody. No wonder people will walk away or disregard somebody when they don't have a relationship with them. So this idea of social capital is a powerful framework for building a better community, for allowing us to be better people, for creating a society where everybody respects one another. Right? And so as I continue my work with social capital, as I continue at our agency class in trying to find ways that people who are experiencing disabilities can build relationships, we're using different kinds of methodologies to make that happen. But it really takes me back to a final point that I want to share with you. And it really is a story that's very poignant to me today. And it happened with me in relationship to my dad. Today's my father's 97th birthday. And he passed away 10 years ago. He had Parkinson's. And his Parkinson's was pretty overt. It caused him to shake a lot, drooped in his gait. And as the Parkinson's began to take over, my dad became more and more disconnected. And we worked hard to try to keep him connected as much as we could, but we had this disability working against that. And physically, he needed personal care. He needed total care. And toward the end of his life, my sisters and my brother and I provided attendant care to our dad, personal care. And one night, about 2 weeks before he passed away, I was giving him a bath. And we were in the tub, and I was washing him. And that's kind of an awkward situation, right? Giving your dad a bath is not something that, we typically find unfolding in our lives. And my dad started to cry. And I didn't know how to handle it. I had seen my dad cry before, but they were tears of joy and happiness. This was a different type of crying. And I said, I made a joke. I said, "Dad, no crying in the bathtub. What are you doing? Don't cry." And he said, "I didn't want this for you." And I said, "What?" And he said, "I didn't want you to have to take care of me. I should be taking care of you." And I said, "Dad, that you have taken care of me, right? And you've guided me and you've led our family, and now it's my turn to take care of you. And I hope if ever I have needs like that, my sons and my family will take care of me." And then my dad said something that made me cry. He said, "I don't want you to remember me like this. I don't want you to remember me like this." But as I collected myself, I realized at that moment my dad was actually giving me a gift. He was giving me an opportunity to tell him how much I love him. He gave me an opportunity right there that night to tell him how much he meant to our family and how important he was, what a guide he was to me, how he literally helped me become the man I am to create the relationships that have been so important in my life. And so a couple weeks after that, I told that story when Dad passed away at church. But it brings me to this quote, this beautiful quote from Schweitzer, because in the end, it's really, have we mattered? In the end, have we made a difference? In the end, have we made this world better than we found it? And our relationships, our social capital, is the fodder that allows us to answer that question, yes, we have. Yes, we did. And so, as we sit here today with hundreds of people that you have in your life that prop you up, that make you help you become creative, that challenge you, that scold you when you need it, that inspire you just at that moment when you have, then thank social capital for that. And know that today any of us can open gates for other people who have been left behind. And there's a lot of folks like my cousin Carrie who have been left behind. We can change the world. We can, if we dare to create, if we dare to open our minds, we can create a community where everybody belongs and is valued. Thank you very much. God bless you.